What's going on YouTube? It's Sharonc back with another video. So I've mentioned to you guys before that I like to travel. I travel a lot. So recently I traveled to Cuba for my 29th birthday. And since I got back, I've gotten so many questions about my travel. So people just want to know all the deets basically. Like, how did you get there? Is it legal? What was it like? What was the money like? Is it safe? Where did we stay? So since I've gotten so many questions about it, I figure it just makes sense to do a video on it. So I am going to break this video down into two different parts. So this first part will be more so like the preparation side. So like, how do we book our flights? Is it legal to go? Where do we stay? Currency exchange, all that good stuff. And then I'll do a second half where I'll kind of talk more about like once we got there, what we did, how, like, what the safety was like, what the culture was like, what our experience was. So before we jump into the video, let me just say, thank y'all for coming back again. Thank y'all for coming back and watching another video. I hope that you guys are enjoying what you've seen so far. Please continue to like and subscribe, and let's just build, like, let's build together. Let's build this little sisterhood. I appreciate y'all. So getting into it. So let me say, is it legal to travel to Cuba? Like, nah. Like, we was over there straight up, like, illegally. Like, I don't even know how we made it. It's like, nah. Yes, it is legal to travel to Cuba now. So I know, like, originally, we weren't allowed to travel at all. Then Obama came through, did what he did, and then it was illegal for us to go. And then Trump came in and did what he did, and then it was like, okay, you can go, but you can't go as a tourist. So I will say that be a little more prepared than I was. So, like, for me, like, this whole Cuba trip was mad random. Like, it was my 29th birthday. I knew I wanted to go out of the country. And I also wanted something that was within my price range. And I was just looking, and I was about to settle for Mexico yet again. And that would have been my fourth time going to Mexico. And I was just like, listen, sis, we got to go somewhere else. And I came across Cuba as a part of a cruise package. And I was like, should I just do a cruise? Then I started looking at Cuba on its own. And I'm like, oh, I could do this by itself. And I booked the flights. Like, I just booked the flights. Just booked it. And then I started kind of like Googling and reading. And I'm like, hold up. Is it okay? Am I okay to go here? Like, is this a thing? Like, am I allowed to go? Like, hold on, what I gotta do? And so I was totally unprepared. But through videos like this that I'm providing you guys, that other YouTubers did, and different just different websites with different information, I got it. I was able to go. I got everything that I needed. And so so basically, we aren't allowed to travel to Cuba as tourists. So if you're going to go to Cuba, you have to, like, there's this list of like 12 different reasons as to why you're traveling to Cuba. And you would have to fill this out before you book your flight, or at the time of booking your flight, or before you leave the country. So the list of 12, like, I'm not going to give y'all all 12 because I don't remember. But what I will say is the one that you should pick, unless one of the 12 are legit reasons, like, I know they got like a journalism, they got like different stuff like that. So unless one of those are legit and you got something to prove that you're legit going for that reason, I would say that the safest one to choose is for support of the Cuban people. So that's what I selected. And basically what that means is you're going there and you're going to support the people. So you want to go, you're going to be immersed in the culture. You're going to like basically help them financially. So you're going to buy local. You're going to like maybe do some local kind of like maybe dance lessons, cooking lessons, just different things to kind of like really immerse yourself into the culture. And then also definitely like staying local, so not like in a nice little fancy hotels, because like how you going for support of Cuban people, but you staying in the tourist hotel, like, But I will say that part right there, like, I was like nervous, like, even though I've read so much about it and I was like firm, like, okay, this is the one this is the selection that I should choose. I was still kind of like nervous, like, well, when I get there and when I get to the airport, are they going to question me? Are they going to need evidence? Like, all this stuff. So basically what it comes down to is those forms that we fill out with one of those 12 reasons, it's not for Cuba. Like, Cuba don't really care why we come in. It's more so for the state side. So if somebody in the White House decide to pull your name for an audit anywhere from now for the next 2 years, or from the time that you travel and then 2 years out, You could be pulled for audit, and if you're pulled for audit, they can look and be like, okay, why did you go? If you said you went to support the Cuban people, then they could ask you for like kind of like proof of like what not proof, but like kind of like a record of what you did while you were there. So how did I book my flight? So like I said, it was just very impulsive. And I tend to do that sometimes when it comes to traveling. Like I just be wanting to go and I'm like, boom, I'm booking. So what I do is, and this is something like I just recently started doing and it's lovely. So I go to google.com and I type in my local airport to whatever destination that I want to look at. And then I put in my dates and then it'll kind of like generate all these different flights and it'll give you a list of different flights, like the cheapest prices. And that's how I did it. So when I put it in, I saw the different flights come up. There are only select airlines right now flying out or flying to Cuba rather. So one of them being Delta. So I flew Delta. My mom, who went with me, she flew JetBlue. So it's not that many airlines that's flying to Cuba right now, but if you go on like google.com, I would say do it the way I did it. Like, I mean, you could probably go straight to an airline like delta.com and try to do it through them. But for the purpose of like, if you want to get the most cost efficient ticket, then I would say go to something like Google or some other type of like search agent that like allows you to pull and search like from the cheapest flight. Booked my flight, sent everything through, boom, it was done. Simple and easy. Number 3, where do we stay? So first we stayed in an Airbnb. I will say we did not stay in a hotel. I started to look at hotels and I was like floored by the prices. Like, excuse me, what? Like the hotel prices are sky high over there. And it's mainly because they know that tourists are staying in hotels and they don't even have a lot of tourists. So obviously the prices are going to be higher. So, cause they don't even get that much, they don't get that much traffic. So whatever traffic they do get, they gotta hit them pockets. So like, I know like Beyonce and Jay-Z, when they went to Cuba, they stayed in the hotel. Obama stayed in a hotel. Like basically the rich people stay in the hotels. But for me, I stayed in a nice little Airbnb. And honestly, like I wouldn't have it any other way. It was beautiful. It was the best experience. Like I couldn't imagine staying in a hotel somewhere like that. Some places like if I'm going to Mexico, Jamaica, something like that, like sis, I need all inclusive. I need to be able to roll out my bed, go downstairs, get me some breakfast, get free drinks, have somebody clean my room every day, sit by the pool. I need the full on like the works. But at a place like in Cuba, I don't know, it just felt different. It felt like I was home. It felt like I was with family. Like our Airbnb was lovely. And I'm not going to give too much information about my Airbnb now, simply because I kind of want to touch on it in the next video. But basically, like, they provided us with everything that we needed from start to finish. Like the Airbnb experience was exceptional. So like we had a host, we had a driver, we had like a co-host who was also kind of like a tourist, kind of like / our tour guide / like our planner. Like she literally planned our trip from start to finish. Like as soon as we got there, she sat with us, she talked us through, she gave us we told her what we were doing or what we wanted to do. She arranged taxis, she arranged reservations for my birthday. I had already made reservations for this for LaGuardia, I think it's called, the restaurant there. And so she got me a driver, but then she also called the hotel and like told them it was my birthday. So they came out, sung happy birthday with a whole little cake and stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that was so sweet. So the thing with Airbnbs over there is like it's booming now because they know that a lot of tourists are starting to come, and they know that number one, if you're coming from the United States, you shouldn't be staying in a hotel. And then two, like just a lot of people, period, in general, are starting to get on the Airbnb wave. So it's like a legit business. So like they ran our Airbnb like a business. Like every day we had a maid come in to make us breakfast. Every day the same maid came in and she made our bed. She cleaned the whole place for us. Like they had like a full working system. Like somebody pick us up from the airport, somebody drop us off to the airport, somebody plan our events, somebody cook for us, somebody got our exchange, like our money. Like it was just like a whole process to it, and it just made my experience in Cuba like exceptional. Now as far as location, we stayed in Veradero. So I think that's how you say it. So Veradero is like a little bit outside of Havana. So it was probably like a 10 to 15 minute drive to like old Havana. So if you look at pictures of Cuba or like Havana and you see all the like colorful buildings and like the streets with all the really, really old houses, that's considered like old Havana. And so we were like 10 to 15 minutes away from there. Now, what I will say is I enjoyed the location. I enjoyed the location because it was like a little out the way. It wasn't like, it was where the people live, like straight up, like this is where the people that work every day and, you know, come home, cook their dinner, like this is where they lived. And we were staying in an apartment building, and I like, it was great. It was quiet. It wasn't too much going on, but I will say that those taxis add up, sis, like, because everything you do 9 times out of 10 is going to be in Old City, so, or Old Havana. And like traveling back and forth, like every day, like the taxi cost added up. And then it was like once you were in the room or in the house, you were in, like, because you didn't want to pay for another taxi to go back out. And it wasn't like an area where you could just like walk outside and like get into something. It wasn't that. So if you like, depending on what you're looking for or what you're looking to accomplish, I would say to like explore areas in Veradero or Havana. If you want to like be in the city and you want to be able to like easy access, walking distance, restaurants all around, cafes, bars, like all of that. If you want that around you, I would say go more so for like Old Havana. But Veradero was beautiful. And then of course you could do like other places outside of Old Havana. It was a little difficult for me to figure out where because it's not really touristy. So it was hard to like, you know how some places like you could be like, oh, well, I know for sure I want to visit this, this, and this. So let me find an area around this, this, and this. In this case, it wasn't like that because it's not so touristy anyway. So I didn't really know what I wanted to see, like as far as like monuments or specific locations or specific things. So we ended up in Veradero, 10 to 15 minutes away. It was beautiful. I loved it. No complaints. It was restaurants around, but those restaurants weren't good. I'm not gonna lie. So I would definitely still travel back into the city to eat. But yeah, so I would say before you book, figure out what you want to do. You need to know, one, if you want to stay in like a casa, which is a house with multiple rooms in it and you rent out a room in the house, or if you want to get your own apartment. So we had our own apartment. So we were in an apartment building, but we had the apartment to ourselves, 1 bedroom. Location wise, you want to figure out if you want to be like in the mix or if you want to be like away, if you want to spend more money on taxis or if you want to save that money, if you want to be able to like go out in the middle of the night and enjoy a little bite to eat and some salsa dancing. You might want to stay more so in the city opposed to outside. So yeah, so figure all that out and then go on Airbnb and create yourself a wish list. That's what I did. I created myself a wish list and I knew that I was looking for modern looking places, which they have aplenty. Like they have so many Airbnbs in Cuba. It makes no sense. Or in Havana. So like, I know like Havana is like old. And so you kind of might want to go and stay in like an old looking place. But like some of the old looking places just look straight up like, no sis, we wasn't doing that. So I was looking for like modern. And so I created a wish list and I just went on there and every day I clicked the most modern ones that I saw that was like within my price range. And then I ended up narrowing it down, paid for it, and boop, that was it on it. So for the cost of the trip. So guys, I had all my costs, my trip costs saved. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. So what I do know is the trip itself, like it was cheap in my opinion. Like in my opinion, it was cheap. The thing is, it's not all inclusive. So the cost of getting there was all right. Now the cost of like when we were there, sis, I was like, what is this? Okay, so my flight. So the flight was originally $164 per person, and this was flying with Delta. So I'm not gonna say unfortunately, to go to Cuba, they got all these extra fees and taxes and insurance and aviation security service, all types of stuff. Okay, all these extra added costs like that you gotta pay. And so by the time all those were added, the trip or the flight went from $164 to $291.91. Now, to me, that's still a pretty good flight for a round trip. $291, I was okay with that. So I think that's fairly inexpensive. As far as our Airbnb for 5 days was a total of $363.67. And so, of course, it was me and my mom, so we split that 2 ways. And depending on where you stay, it could be a little bit more or less than that. I saw some for way less than what we paid, and I saw some for way more than we paid. And then, of course, it depends on how many people are going. Split that up, boom, 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 there you go. So to me, the trip going, like the trip arrangements, like lodging and travel, was super affordable, inexpensive. I was fine with it. Now, once we got there, it just was a little more expensive. Like, every meal we ate, we didn't eat anything for less than $22 a person. Like, every single meal we had was about $22 a person, to the point where we had to like start splitting meals. Like, everywhere we went, we was just like, all right, what you want? You want this? Okay, we're gonna split that, and we'll split an appetizer or something. Every single place we went, like dinner, lunch, we didn't have to pay for breakfast at all because it was included in our Airbnb, which was a blessing. But like lunch and dinner, we didn't go anywhere where we didn't spend at least $45 for every meal. Y'all, like, that's a lot. Then like the taxis. So the taxis were like, so going back and forth. And the thing is, I will say this, disclaimer, we didn't take taxis the whole time because we had a driver that our Airbnb host hooked us up with. So to go from like, on average, pretty much every time we went from our apartment to Old Havana, it was $10 each way. So $20 round trip. So let's just say we did that like every day. Once a day we did a round trip there. Then like it was another location that we went to that was a little closer, which was like the art factory. I'll talk about that in the next video. But like it was a little closer, so that one ended up being like $5 or $6 each way. So like the taxis add up, food add up. And that's pretty much all we paid for, but it just felt like the money was like dwindling away. Like I was like, oh, hey, whoa, this is kind of expensive. But yeah, other than that, like I think the trip, like going there, is super inexpensive, but I think that you just need to kind of have a good game plan as to like what you're paying for. So, or what you're going to pay for, or like how much you want to eat. And then budget that way. So like I said, every meal came out to be about $20-ish. And then drinks were probably like the average, like drinks, like alcoholic drinks, was like between $2 and $5. Which is crazy to me. Like you could literally get a whole mojito for $2.50. Or and like if you wanted to get a large mojito, it might be $5 or $6, but a regular size $2, $2.50. A daiquiri $2.50, like $3.50, $4. So drinks, pretty, I think, inexpensive compared to what we got here in the States. Food, mad expensive. Taxis, pretty expensive. And like I said, we were using drivers most of the time, but even when we used a taxi, it wasn't much less, like maybe a couple dollars less. But for the most part, transportation and food won't get you. So prepare per day how many meals you want to eat. And then that's another thing to take into consideration. Would you rather stay in a city where you don't have to take as many taxis? If you stay away, be prepared to pay more for taxis. One of the days we traveled to the beach, and the beach was about a 30-minute drive, and I think we ended up paying $65 for that taxi. It was round trip, but still, it was about $65, and it was with an old car. So like a lot of times, all the taxis usually are old cars, and you can get those for a regular price. But if you literally reserve an old car, an old school car, a lot of times they hike up the price. So it'll be like $30, $35 each way. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So number 5, what do we need to travel to Cuba? So to travel to Cuba, like I said, so basically you need to fill out that form, right? With with one of the 12 options. And let me tell you, it's literally check it off, like just check. And, you need a visa. Those are the only 2 things you need: to check one of those options, and you need a visa, and you need a passport, obviously, because you're going out of the country, if you ain't know that. So, now for the visa part, you literally get the visa when you get there. You get to your gate, whatever your last departure flight is, or wherever the last departure, like to go there. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Because, and I'm saying that because there's only three airports on the East Coast at least. I don't know about everywhere else, but there's 3 airports that travel straight to Cuba. So it's New York, Atlanta, and Florida. And so if you're flying out of any of those, then obviously you probably got a direct flight. Boom, you take your direct flight and you fill out the paper. You get your visa there. For us, since we were flying out of Philly, we had to go from Philly to our layovers, which my layover was in Atlanta, my mom's layover was in Florida. So we didn't get our visa. I paid for my visa in Philly, but I didn't get my visa until I was leaving Atlanta. So you'll get it wherever the last place is that's about to take you directly to Cuba, basically. And that was $50 with Delta. I don't know about everywhere else, but for me, it was $50 with Delta. I'm pretty sure my mom paid $50 with JetBlue. So you pay the $50, you get your little visa. You make sure you hold on to your visa the whole time because you're going to need it to get back into the country or to leave the country. So you need it to get into Cuba, and then you need it, obviously, to get out of Cuba. So just keep it with you. If you lose it, you got to pay for it all over again and all types of other hoopty-la. Just hang on to it. And then you need to fill out the one of the options for the 12. Or you need to fill out the paper with one of the 12 options. And even that was just a quick and easy process. And let me tell you, when you get there, they take the paper, they look at it, and they keep it moving. Like, it's no long, drawn-out process. They don't really look at it. They don't really ask you no questions. When you coming back into the States, you know how when you're coming back into the States, they usually ask you a couple questions like, oh, where were you at? What were you there for? What you do? Da-da-da. Like, trying to get a little feel for what you were doing. I just was like, oh yeah, I was there to support the Cuban people. You know, I took some like history tours and whatever else I did. Like, we took some clothes over there, which we donated to the people, which we legit did. So I kind of like just little stuff like that, and then kept it pushing. Other than that, no big deal. Nobody harasses you. Nobody asks you too many questions. You don't feel like, oh my gosh, am I allowed to go? It's just like any other travel experience, in my opinion. And then number 6, so the money and exchange. So y'all know y'all can't use not one bit of USD nothing in Cuba. Like, because of all the OFAC sanctions and all types of other stuff, we are like, they don't want nothing to do with us in our currency. So you have to go with 100% cash. Like, you can't use a card when you're there. You can't, nothing, no checks, no nothing, no credit cards, 100% cash. So the way I budgeted was, I just kind of like, was like, okay, I'll just do like, I think $100 a day. I was there for 5 days, took $500. Sis started running out of money real quick. But anyway, and the currency exchange rate is, so they use 2 different currencies. So they use like a sooooo, which is basically a convertible. So it's literally equivalent to the US dollar. So it's 1 sooooo to 1 USD. Then they also use the pesos, the Cuban pesos. So one USD is equivalent to 25 Cuban pesos. The thing is, as a tourist, you're not going to use the Cuban pesos, and don't let nobody give you Cuban pesos while you're there. So basically, think about it 1 to 1. So if you go there with $500, your $500 in the US is going to be your $500 over there in Cuba. The thing with that is they charge you an exchange fee. And the thing with the exchange fee is, if you're exchanging USD to sooooo, because it's USD, and I guess because they have so many issues with the US dollar, they charge a heavy fee. So I think the fee is 16 or 14% just to exchange your money. So you basically losing 14 cent, 16 cent on every dollar. That's a lot, sis. So, but our Airbnb host helped us exchange for 10%. So basically we lost 10 cents on every dollar, which wasn't pleasant if you ask me. Like, my $500, like, it dwindled down to $450, and I was like, what? Like, excuse me? Anyway, but yeah, so I've read a lot of places that you should convert to like euro or the Canadian dollar in the States first. And then when you get there, it'll like, you'll exchange your money, but you won't get hit with such a high exchange fee, simply because it's not USD. Now, the thing is, you have to do a little bit more math in that, because like for the euro, the euro is stronger than the dollar, so I would have been losing a good amount of money just converting it to the euro already. And then they're still going to charge me some type of fee once I get there. It just may not be as high as it would be for USD. So when I lose 2 times, like I'm losing money twice, it's going through twice the filter process. Like, is it gonna equal out to be the same? So I automatically did away with euro. I was like, I'm not doing that. And if you know what the exchange rate would be in Cuba, it may be a little like easier to do the comparison. For me, I don't know what the exchange rate would have been, but just thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I'm already going to lose at least like, what is the euro usually to the dollar? I don't know what it is right now, but it's usually at least 10 cents or something around there less. So I'm like, okay, by the time I lose that, and then I got to go over there and exchange it again, like, is it going to be the same or am I going to lose more? But the Canadian dollar I was looking at, and the Canadian dollar seemed like it would have been a good thing just because the Canadian dollar is weaker than the US dollar. So you would have automatically got more Canadian dollars. And then when you get there, I'm not sure I don't know what the exchange rate would have been, but if it was less than 16 or 10%, you could have potentially made out better. By the time we got to that point and we were ready to go, I says, well, ain't nobody had time for that. Like, ain't nobody had time for that. And then, like, with my bank, we would have had to exchange the money days ahead or weeks ahead of time in order to get the money to us, which we didn't do. And then to exchange, a lot of people were saying just exchange at the airport. The airport, they be charging mad money like for every exchange. So I'm like, I'm not doing that either. So I just took my USD, and when I got there, my host helped us exchange our money, 10 cents on a dollar. I lost $50 for that 500. It was just like, whatever, we good. Let's just do what we do. Now, we did start running out of money towards the end of the trip, mainly because we weren't expecting food to be so expensive and we weren't expecting to pay so much in taxis. So we started kind of like running out of money, and then you got to account for like stuff with the Airbnb. The only thing with Airbnb is like, yeah, your price is your price, but at the end of it, now you want to tip everybody because you kind of build like this family and y'all work too close together. Like they literally are with you every single day, just you and them. So it's harder to walk away without tipping at all. So like we wanted to tip them, so we had to think about tips. Wi-Fi cards, bruh, them Wi-Fi cards. So Cuba don't have Wi-Fi, not free Wi-Fi, free roaming Wi-Fi. They only have select hotspots. So like this park is a hotspot, and then sometimes like certain buildings or certain apartments will have their own hotspot, or certain restaurants. But even still, to get on that hotspot, you have to have the Wi-Fi card. And the Wi-Fi cards, the ones that we were buying were $3 per card. And you only get an hour for $3. So me and my mom, and the thing is, 2 people could be on it at once. So me and my mom, we would get one. We would both decide, all right, you ready to start the Wi-Fi now or what? Like, when we would wait until we were in the room, in the house, like we were done for the night. And we would be like, all right, you ready? You good? You sitting down? You ready? Let's turn on the Wi-Fi. And so we would activate the Wi-Fi card and we would rock out for an hour. But let me tell you how we was running through those things. Like they started us with 3. I think we used 10 by the end of the vacation. Now that's also sad because you should be able to enjoy a vacation without using that much Wi-Fi. But for us, like it was the struggle. Like the struggle was real and we needed Wi-Fi. So $30 for Wi-Fi cards. And it don't sound like a lot, but when you're running on just a set amount of cash and nothing more, coming out that $30, you'd be like, bruh, like, that's a hurt piece right there. Like, $30 for Wi-Fi? Anyway, so yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I have for y'all for preparing to go. And I will also say one more thing to the Wi-Fi. Like, I know a lot of people think, like, oh, you have absolutely no cell phone service while you're there. That wasn't true for us. And we have Sprint, and Sprint kind of suck. Sorry, Sprint, but you kind of suck. So, yeah, with Sprint kind of being like not one of the best carriers, I was surprised. Like when I got there, like I wasn't, because me and my mom flew separate. So we was trying to like devise a plan while we were still in the States because we didn't think we would have any cell phone service. So we like, yo, where are we? Like, we don't know what this airport looked like. How we gonna find each other? Like our flights got there relatively around the same time, but still, how we gonna find each other? Where we gonna meet at? You know? And so it was kind of like stressful a little bit. But as soon as we touched down, I took my phone off of airplane mode, and some little service popped up, and I was able to send her a text and ask her if she was there. She was able to respond to me and tell me where she was, and boom. Now she did get hit with some pretty heavy roaming charges. I did it. I don't know how. God was on my side or whatever, but and then I was able to text like throughout my time there, like times that I wasn't on Wi-Fi, I still was able to send and receive text while I was like out and about sometimes. So cell phone service, it's a thing. They have it. It's not great. It's real spotty. Wi-Fi, it's a thing. They have it. Real spotty. Because even sometimes where we were in the house on the Wi-Fi card that we paid for, it would like keep going out. Instagram wasn't working. It was moving mad slow. The card would just stop working out of nowhere. It was a whole to do. Like, it was stressful. That Wi-Fi situation, it got stressful at a certain point. But again, that just shows me how Americanized I am and how much I'm addicted to Wi-Fi and internet and all the other good stuff that I need to like let go of. So yeah, so that is it. That is pretty much all for like the preparation part, how we got there, where we stayed. I hope y'all got something out of it. So the next video I'm going to do, I'm going to come back and I'm not going to like insert any pictures and videos this time because ain't really nothing to show y'all about these specific topics. But for the next video, I'll try to like insert some videos and some pictures like of our time there. And I'll kind of like explain just a little bit more of like what life was like there, like safety, what we did, how the food was, what there is to do, what the weather was like, different stuff like that. And yeah, so I will see y'all in the next video.